Good evening. I'm Lenore Beyer. I work for the Kinship Foundation, and I run our Food Land Opportunity grant-making program. And I'm from Chicago, and I'm here with my Chicago crew. And today we're going to talk about the different funding vehicles and different innovative methods that we've done to provide funding for the food system organizations within our region. So we'll start with just introductions about who you are, where you work, and then we'll come back and talk about those a little bit more. Alexandra?
My name is Alexandra Sosa. I'm the Chief Executive Officer with the Farm Worker and Landscaper Advocacy Project, Proyecto de Ayuda para Trabajadores del Campo y Jardineros, FLAP. Our organization mission is to improve working conditions in Illinois.
Hi, I'm Courtney Renton. I'm the Executive Director of Proofing Station. We are a nonprofit impact-first investing fund focused on increasing access to capital in the Midwest food system, especially for early and mid-stage farm and food businesses and underserved farm and food businesses as well.
Thank you. So think about Chicago. We're in, the other day I heard at the forum somebody refer to the Midwest as the belly of the beast, a place of rows and rows of corn and soybeans, places where you wouldn't think that there was a lot of local food going on, but there really is. And there's a burgeoning group of people working in local food and growers, organizations, people working with workers, people providing technical assistance and capital to make sure those things come together. So, but to address those needs, we've had to create a number of different sort of funding vehicles and show the arc of funding, that whether it's traditional grant making, participatory grant-making funds, or the impact investment piece that really goes from there. So let's describe those programs. So I'm going to start with you, Courtney, and talk about your impact investing program.
Sure. So we really like to think of ourselves as a gap filler fund, both in terms of what we fund and then also the structure and the products that we can offer. So we were really formed out of a need and an observation that there were these barriers in the Midwest food system, systemic barriers that needed investment that were kind of falling through the cracks, maybe of philanthropy or government funding or traditional lending and investment, and that there were other tools that were needed that were more flexible, more catalytic, and able to reach farms and food businesses that were struggling to access those other forms of capital. So that was kind of the reason for being and how we approach our investment. We have 4 focus areas that we build our entire investment strategy, our criteria, our impact framework around, that are really targeted around those barriers and opportunities in the region. So those are sustainable cultivation, so that would be transition to organic and regenerative, regional infrastructure, so really thinking about that missing middle piece, underserved market players, so really thinking about the who of where our dollars are going, and folks who have been historically discriminated against or excluded from financial and lending systems, and sustainable cultivation. So, yeah. And then along with those, we also, we ourselves are a 501c3 nonprofit, which is really core to making sure that when we say we're an impact first fund, we really mean it. We have to meet our charitable purpose, but it also allows us flexibility in terms of the products that we can offer. So we can offer loans, we can offer equity investments, we can do credit enhancements and other kind of funkier structures. And that again is really designed to sort of meet the need of various types of businesses and borrowers in the region, and knowing that those capital needs look really different depending on your stage and the part of the industry you're in, so that we can create kind of bespoke terms and term sheets for each of those deals. So we've been doing this now we're almost 2 years old. We're kind of at the toddler phase, but we've deployed $2.5 million in capital in the region over the last year and a half. We have 4 amazing portfolio companies, portfolio enterprises in our community, and we have so much more work to do. So we're excited about what we've been able to do so far and learned a lot along the way.
That's great. It's a very innovative and new, and we're excited to see where it goes. So Alexandra, I know you have you do amazing work with your organization, with FLAP, but I know you also are part of the Chicago Region Food System Fund, which is also near and dear to my heart. We serve on the steering committee together. And the Chicago Region Food System Fund has given away over $21.5 million since 2020 to 205 organizations. So can you tell me a little bit about what you think about the Chicago Region Food System Fund and its work.
I think we are amazing. We do amazing work, and the importance of that work is that we are able to sit at the table with funders and community leaders, and our voices are really heard and implemented, and I think we are making a difference, and we are providing resources in Chicago and 200 miles from Chicago to those organizations who are really at the front line and are really putting the food on our table. So what is important about this mix of funders and community leaders is that we really are telling them what our needs as a community is. And they are listening. Because they may have the resources, but they may not know what are the needs that the community is in more need right now, and that's what's the beauty of the Chicago Region Food System Fund Steering Committee.
Thank you for that. So I'm going to follow up with that a little bit, Alexandra. So as a member of the community, when you came into this space, how did it feel? And has it changed over time since you've been there 2 years now, right?
It changed 100%. As a chief executive officer of an organization, we are a little intimidated by the funders because we always think that, well, they have the money, they have the resources, and we put the labor, we put the work, but it's kind of tricky, to be equal. Now I feel more confident talking to funders, and I think I got more tools, and I got to understand why decisions are made. And just to give you an example, before Chicago Region Food System Fund, when I got those emails, thank you so much for the wonderful work that you do, but we cannot give you funding. Then I was like, this. But now I get those emails, and I understanding that it's hard to make those decisions, and you have some resources, but it's very difficult to help everyone. And I have been practicing consensus process very, very well in those meetings, and understanding where community members are coming from, but where the funders are also coming from, and understand we are different backgrounds. There is a language barrier sometimes, and there is also, generations, and we are a very diverse group. So it's wonderful.
Thank you, Alexandra. You're a great member of that committee. So Courtney, when you think too about implementing your program and making those decisions on the companies and how it's actually proving out impact, how do you make those decisions, and how is that played out for you?
It's been really hard. It's been really fascinating. I think, we were essentially startup. So we were going through that startup journey just like any other nonprofit or organization. We were also trying to do something new and do it differently. And so we learned a lot from other peer funds that are here at the SAFSF conference, and that we were able to kind of learn from and adopt some of their processes, but also adapt them towards what we needed and who we were going to serve in the Midwest. In terms of our decision-making processes, I think it's evolved a lot and will continue to. We have an investment committee who is our ultimate decision maker. It is made up of some board members, but also some practitioners and community members, which we're really hoping to grow as time goes on and make sure that we have more food business voices around that table. We also have a network of what we call sourcing partners who have been core to Proofing Station's really mission since before we were formally launched and existed. They're a group of nonprofits and TA providers and folks who are working directly with farms and food businesses on the ground across the Midwest and the 6 states that we serve. And they have helped inform our strategy. They've given feedback on our impact framework. They also refer deals to us. So as they're out working with farmers and food businesses and have a sense of the type of capital that we can offer and what's needed, they can be that kind of trusted intermediary who says, hey, have you heard of Proofing Station? You should check them out. We work with them. We know they do good work. And I think that really helps kind of bridge some trust and some familiarity, since we are kind of new kids on the block, and helps really ease those initial intro conversations as well. So that's a little bit of the process. We have an open intake form on our website. That's really important to me. I've been a nonprofit leader before I was in this role as a funder. And so accessibility is really important, of making sure that someone said earlier, information is a resource, and I feel that about sharing who we are, what we do, what our criteria is. That's all on our website, and anyone can fill out a form and reach out and essentially have a conversation with me, so that we can get to know each other and see if it's a good fit. And then if it's not, I'm also really passionate about making sure that we never just say no and good luck, but that we're making referrals to other funds, other nonprofits, philanthropic funding, if there's something that's a better fit for the stage or the need that they have. So we're really using the right tools for the right needs.
So Food Land Opportunity is a strategic grant making program. So and we support organizations working to increase access to land, to build supply side skills on the ground of both food businesses and farmers, and also the access to capital piece. So we really believe in kind of this concept of integrated capital, that an organization might need grants as well as a loan, as well as funding from the collaborative fund, in such a way that it can kind of see that through. I think you have an example of that. Do you, Courtney?
I would love to share an example. So our most recent investment was into an incredible company called Damian's Craft Meats. They are a meat processing facility that is going to be built in Ann Arbor, Michigan. An incredible couple, business partners, Latinx entrepreneurs who have been in the food and butchering space for a long time and are building a USDA-inspected slaughterhouse and meat processing facility to really fill that regional infrastructure gap that was observed in the region. And we came to know them because they were a recipient of a Chicago Region Food System Fund grant 2 years ago, maybe, to do a feasibility study. That was a need that they had identified that would make them ultimately more financeable, more loan ready, but to really have some rigorous research around the documented need and the feasibility of their proposed facility in the region. So this report is incredible. I look at it all the time. They've looked at everything from what other facilities exist in the state, pricing per pound by different type of animal, really just everything that a funder and an investor might want to know in our diligence process. And that was made possible through this grant, through the Chicago Region Food Systems Fund, so that by the time they came to us, they were more prepared, they were more investment ready, they had so much more information, and that was, really, I think, the pipeline that we'd love to see this ecosystem build in the region. We've also been able to continue to support them with integrated capital along the way. So as they grew, they were actually so successful at fundraising and got, I think, a $4 million USDA MPEP grant that they needed to update their financial model, which is expensive. As even, I feel like we talk about the challenges sometimes. There's also challenges that come with success and growth. And so they needed to update their financial projections, which was going to cost about $10,000. And so we were able to provide a small TA grant to help them get their finances updated, which again was something they needed, but also, again, made them more investment ready, and updated information that we would have needed for our diligence anyway. So I think there's these amazing entrepreneurs that are learning how to access the system, but I also think funders and groups like ours who stay in touch and share information, we can be doing a better job, I think, of coordinating with each other to kind of take some of that research and work of like, who do I talk to and when's the right time for me to get a Chicago Region Food System Fund grant, and when's a good time for me to start talking to Proofing Station. I think we're getting better at kind of clarifying and demystifying that process to make it easier for farmers and food businesses to access the right tools at the right time as well.
So Alexandra, do you have any, I'm curious if you've heard anything about how the Chicago Region Food System Fund is perceived by your fellow grantees on the ground, and whether it's hitting a need, whether we're being responsive and listening in ways that the community members are sharing with the fund.
Yeah, no, they are very curious about how we make decisions and how we practice consensus, because not everybody is familiar with consensus process. And I honestly recommend every funder to take a look to our model and maybe implement that in their states and their cities.
So thank you very much. So in terms of thinking about this sort of arc of funding, I think in Chicago we've really recognized that there's a good funder community, there's a need, and there's a growing impact investment community, but there's also opportunities for us all to work together. And then I think we're finding that when a grantee understands that we are working together, that we can provide help and partnership at all different levels, it's really helping the food system grow. So any last words, Courtney?
Well, can I ask you a question, Lenore? So I know that this year was Foodland Opportunity's 10-year anniversary. Flow has made incredible impacts in the region, including being instrumental in funding and launching these initiatives that we've been talking about. But I'd be curious, I know there was a lot of work done to kind of look back over the last 10 years and understand the impact of Flow's work. What changes have you made or are you planning to make to Flow's funding strategies going forward based on what you've learned from this type of work?
So thank you for that. And I think it's really interesting because it's become, all of these things are sort of integrated in it now. We had a long engagement process and really went out and talked to a lot of people, which was really wonderful. And people really loved getting together, and all of our grantees and different food system stakeholders in the room multiple times over the course of the year. And it was really, first we landed on our strategies. We haven't solved everything in 10 years, nor did we expect to, but we have made a lot of progress. So land access, skill development, and access to capital continue, but focusing in within those terms to look at where the food system is now in more of a mid-stage rather than where it was 10 years ago. And also recognizing that we need to do more of this, pooled capital, access to capital mechanisms, technical assistance to provide, to help for people to access capital. So some of those things are just taking it the next step further, which I think we're really excited to see happen. Any last words from you about where you feel the Chicago food system is going?
Just to thank for including the voices of the workers. The farm workers are so fundamental, and they are the ones who are executing the work, so thank you for including them.
Yeah, and I would just add, being at this forum this week and what I've heard from other funders and investors in the space, first and foremost, our purpose is to serve the farms and food businesses who need this capital. But I've also heard a need emerge this week from foundations and funders who want to get into impact investing and maybe don't know where to start. And I would just say to really lean on intermediaries like Proofing Station, like so many others that are part of this network who've been doing this work and know how to take that kind of capital down to the community level, have built those relationships and networks. So we're here at SAFSF, and I just want to give a shout out to say we're really here to also help foundations learn and maybe take that first step and get into impact investing. So we can be that resource too.
Thank you for that. I think we look at the food system as a system, right? From the workers to the growers to the retailers to everything in between. So we're happy to provide those services and help as we can. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Lenore.
We look forward to seeing you next year in Savannah, Georgia for the 2026 Forum.